Hello, Brandon Ashby here with Warehouse Engineers. And today we're just doing a simple webinar that will also be listed as a podcast where I go over my business. Today's audience is some colleagues that I have met and worked with in the e-commerce segment. And we've always had a conversation of, oh, you do this, you do that. Can you help me with this? So today's webinar is just simple conversation. We're going to talk about what it is that I do and how I help businesses save money as it relates to inventory and warehousing. And so, I got the screenshot or the image of money laying around because what I do does not save thousands of dollars in one fell swoop. It's picking up dollars here and there, picking up dollars here and there. And that's the goal, is to help small businesses as they grow and expand, especially in that e-commerce segment, save some money. So what we have here is just a long definition that's a play off of industrial engineering. Industrial engineering is process improvement based off of data and math, whatever space you're working in. So most engineering, you have a segment. If you're an electrical engineer, you work on electrical parts. If you're an aerospace engineer, you're working on things that fly in the air. Industrial engineering kind of goes in the different markets, different industries, and warehouse engineering obviously focuses on the optimization of the warehouse. You can go to my website, thewarehouseengineers.com, to learn more about my business and what it is that I do and the services that I provide. So who am I? Brandon Ashby, again, the founder of Warehouse Engineers. I am from the state of Georgia, very proud to say that. I went to Georgia Tech for undergrad, majored in industrial engineering. I went to UGA to get an MBA that focused on project management. And then a few years later, I went to get a certificate in engineering the warehouse at Georgia Tech. And it's funny because one of my first clients said, man, you got a certificate in warehousing? I've been working in a warehouse for 30 years and I don't have a certificate. And so I get it. So that's, you can see I'm a self-proclaimed nerd. I like to study, I like to read and learn specifically about warehousing. So you'll see as we go through today's material, I'm a member of several organizations, education and research that provide best practices as it relates to supply chain, warehousing, project management, process improvement. So I'll jump into that later. So I'm a self-proclaimed nerd, went to Georgia Tech and Georgia. And then finally, I have a taxpayer ID. This is a legitimate business. It's not just me doing this as a side hustle. I have insurance. It's an LLC, Warehouse Engineers. So I'm ready to work, and it's certified. We're in the state of Florida. You can look us up. It's a registered business. Okay, got to level set a little bit because this isn't going to be an educational presentation, but there's a few things that I just got to cover because I don't want to get too technical, but when it comes to lean management or process improvement, when I say lean, we talk about cutting waste. And oftentimes people say, well, I'm lean. I wear 3 or 4 hats. I'm sales and operations, or we have one person that does accounting, HR. People wear multiple hats, and so they think that's lean. Lean is actually about the elimination of waste or non-value added activities. And my favorite acronym for lean management is downtime. So it's defects, overproduction, waiting, not using talent, transportation, inventory, motion, and extra processing. I'm not going to go through examples of all of the different types of waste, but I just want you to know when I refer to waste in this presentation, that's what I'm referring to, non-value added activities. So I'm not talking about, wasteful habits. I'm talking about wasteful, non-value added activities. The other thing is, I'm not an accountant, but when I talk about costs and lowering costs, I'm talking about variable costs. I'm talking about items or expenses or time in the warehouse that fluctuate as demand increases or decreases. So it can be seasonal things such as overtime during peak season. You know, we just got over the holidays. Um, Obviously, you're going to be spending more money on overtime. Could be supplies such as packaging, tape, um, all those types of things that add up. And if we don't keep an eye on them, that cost can start to grow tremendously. So these are the types of costs that I'll be looking at and referring to as it relates to warehouse engineering. Okay, so I talked about what we're going to be doing, but who shouldn't be here? So, you know, this is going to be a rather lengthy webinar. It's going to be under 30 minutes. But there's some people, I don't want to waste your time. Time is valuable. So if you sit at a desk and you're not on the floor, this presentation probably is not for you. I'll be speaking towards people that are on the floor, you know, not getting dirty, but they're in the warehouse or they're counting the inventory. This isn't geared towards, you know, executives or the corporate people. This is shop owners, warehouse owners that are on the floor wearing multiple hats, but trying to do better. Next, it's the Lean Six Sigma black belts. I am a Lean Six Sigma black belt, but this isn't for you, right? I'm not going to talk about process capability. I'm not going to be talking about linear regression. I'm just going to be talking about basic tools for small businesses that are trying to lower their costs as it relates to warehousing. Finally, people that aren't trying to save money. If you're in that startup phase, you're trying to burn some cash to build your business, build your brand, I'm probably not going to be for you. My services are going to be for that established company that are trying to lower their cost. I get it because one of my clients, we started talking about some details as it relates to inventory. And he said, well, I'm trying to grow my inventory so that I can grow the business. And he wasn't really focusing on inventory control. So again, if you're trying to build your business and you're not worried about that variable cost that I mentioned before, you probably just want to sign off. And, you know, there's other ways I can help you, but today we're talking about lowering costs for the small business and the e-commerce companies. Okay, so there's 5 pillars of warehouse engineering, and the foundation is going to be data and math. So simply everything that I do is data driven. I really try not to make up things. I'm not going to talk about the math. I'm not going to talk about the statistics or the algebra or any of that stuff. But what I am going to talk about, the first pillar is going to be project management. Then we're going to talk about inventory planning. Third is warehouse planning, because they are separate, but they're intertwined. Fourth is going to be training. How do we change behavior? And then finally is process improvement. So after we put all those 4 things together, how can we get better, eliminate waste, and lower that cost? Okay, so the way today is going to work is I'm going to talk about just different examples that I've been involved with, and then also the organization that provides best practices I'm a member of, and other resources, so that you can go out and read more about this, you know, at your own leisure, learn more about project management. So project management, what are some examples? What have I been involved with? First one is the classic racking and packaging. You know, you might be involved with putting in new racks, trying to go vertical in the warehouse, just, you know, use more of that space, because oftentimes we think about floor space, but we forget about going vertically. And the other thing is packaging, the right type of packaging, different types of boxes that we could be using. Second is just a greenfield site. Literally, you know, bought some new land. We're not going to lease, we're going to build. So I'm not the professional engineer that signs off on the building permits. I'm the project manager that helps coordinate the efforts of all the stakeholders to build that. So I've been involved as a project manager of new construction of a warehouse. Finally, in which is very popular, is just technology as it relates to warehousing. So there's the warehouse management systems, there's the cloud document systems. There's a lot of technology as it relates to warehousing, and people don't have the resources to onboard and get those new technologies started. But that's where I come into play as a project manager. I can help organizations onboard that new technology and get it up and running. You know, there's could be the data involved, the training, all those things. I can help so that, again, you don't have to hire somebody. You can bring me in as the consultant, as a project manager, to help you get that started within your organization. So then there's project management. This is an example of a client that I helped basically, you know, get some new conveyors in so they could help eliminate waste within the facility, right? So we were talking about motion and transportation in the facility. They knew they wanted conveyors. So I helped, you know, identify the supplier for those conveyors. But how did we get there? Started with, they were the to-do list with the Post-it notes in their office. So they had all these things they wanted to do, you know, by the end of the year, trying to get this done, need to get that done. What we did was the matrix to figure out what was high cost, what was high value, and we wanted to focus on low cost, high value activities. The conveyors aren't that expensive, but it created a lot of value because you could eliminate the steps of people walking back and forth as they were unloading trucks. And I'll kind of talk about that in another example. But this is just an example of have clients have a list of projects. I can help them execute that projects. One of my clients, they use the enterprise or entrepreneur operating system, EOS. So they called it Rocks and Pebbles. I help them knock out some rocks and pebbles, right? So again, you can bring me in, we can talk about the costs associated to certain projects, what those values are, kind of put them in a matrix and knock it out. And then if you want to, I can continue to help execute on that project. Next is inventory planning. So this is something that's often overlooked. We just take inventory for granted. But this is several examples. So on the left, we have coffee cups. Anybody that's been involved with a coffee shop or a gas station and replenishing inventory of coffee cups, you have different sizes, got to worry about the caps, you know, all this small, medium, large, and then you have the accessories, you have the stirs, there's all these things. So when you think about a coffee cup, it's not just as simple as, you know, one coffee cup. There's different sizes, could be different colors. You could think about milk. Milk is a classic example of a complicated inventory problem, not only because you have, you know, your different types of milk, whole milk, skim milk, 2% milk. Milk has a shelf life. So you have to worry about the expiration of the milk. I have 2 young children. I am constantly doing milk runs. So we got to think about the safety stock, how often we get the milk, where do we get the milk from? It's a very complex problem, especially just even in my household. For an organization, managing inventory can get really complicated. And then finally, we have our craft sodas, our craft beers. There has been a SKU proliferation with a lot of products in the market lately. So there's different tools that you can use to help manage that inventory, to help control that inventory. And that's actually, if you go to apex.org, what that actually is the it's the American Society for Production and Inventory Control. So it's best practices as it relates to inventory. So I would definitely visit their website, learn more about that as you continue to grow your business and manage your inventory. Okay, so what's an example of inventory planning that I have done? Well, one, it started with spreadsheets. Had a client, they sent me, you know, a spreadsheet over 5,000 lines. This wasn't the actual spreadsheet. Trust me, I wish the spreadsheets I got were nicely formatted, clean, highlighted. That's not the case. I have seen my share of spreadsheets that require some data cleansing, you know, just so that you can start working with it. So after you get that spreadsheet cleaned up, what's next? What do? You do the inventory stratification. This is ABC. It's based off of the Pareto principle. So you're looking at your top 80% of your volume, whatever it may be, that would be your A items. theoretically that top 80% should tie to 20% of your items. And then you have your B items, which fill in the middle. And then finally is your C items, which is your slow moving inventory. So that could be your bottom 5, your bottom 2%. It's typically a very long list of items that basically are taking up space, tying up working capital. You have them for whatever reason. I don't know if you have a write-off program in place. You know, I've worked with a lot of small businesses that don't like to write off inventory because they say, well, it could sell one day, right? If I write it off, I'm taking a loss. But what if it sells next month, next year? You know, there's different tools to identify whether or not you should write off stuff, especially at year end, so you don't have to pay taxes on it. But that's not for right now. Then finally, with my client that I was helping with on this inventory problem, the whole goal was to turn over that inventory faster. So we were able to do the stratification and really focus on those A items so that we could set the safety stocks appropriately, and those C items lower the safety stocks so that we could turn over money, turn over inventory, and he just had more capital to spend on other parts of his business. Next, we got warehouse planning. Warehouse planning seems simple, and I'm not going to say it's rocket science, but if you do it right, it can have long-lasting effects to lower waste within your warehouse and also lower costs. So again, I've been involved in, new facilities that have already been built, and we're figuring out what's going to go where. I've been involved with existing facilities, and we got to get drawings. I've been there several times, getting in touch with the real estate agent, the landlord, whoever it may be, to get drawings. Getting drawings is not as easy as you would think it is, but I can help you with that. I have Microsoft Visio and AutoCAD, so I can help with drawings. You can bring me in, and we can get you some updated drawings. And then finally is just mapping out your warehouse. How do I get from A to B? Out of one of my favorite questions or favorite things to do, and especially going back to the inventory planning, is saying, I walk into, and I have the supervisor, the foreman, and I say, what's your fastest moving item and where is it located? If they can say it's a medium, size shirt, it's in aisle 5, rack 11, I know I'm in a great place in a warehouse that's, running efficiently. But if they say, well, I got to show you, or I don't know, they need me. And it's fine if you need me. I'm here to help. If you don't have an organized warehouse, if you don't have names and locations identified, I know some best practices, and I can help you with that. One of the organizations that you can learn more about this is the Warehouse and Education Research Council. They have some great resources as it relates to naming, slotting, and planning a facility. Okay, so here's an example. This was probably one of my favorite projects in my first year in operation, was actually planning out a warehouse for a client that hadn't moved in yet. So what do? We start with a blank slate, and we really map out the flow of the material from receiving to shipping and everything in between. So you just draw it out. And then from there, especially in warehousing, packaging is a big deal. So that's why we got this, the guy at his desk, he has his tape, he has his pin, everything that's involved with getting that box out of the door. You got to get your bill of lading, you got to get your label on it. There's all these steps, but when you're planning out the warehouse, you want to take that into account and figure out where everything should go. And that's where you come up with your zones and your drawings. So we have these squares and we have these numbers, and you put it on paper. And then that way, when you have new employees walk in the door, or you're trying to do your cycle count or your inventory count, you know what zone or area in the warehouse that you're trying to go to. Okay, next is training. So I've been involved and done a few training seminars this year, and everything that I do is custom made. So I'll talk about that more in the next slide. But you can have your standard operating procedures. One thing that I will say, I am not a safety expert, but I can help you with ergonomics. And if I see somebody breaking an OSHA violation, I'm going to comment to the supervisor or the manager that, hey, per OSHA, uh, team members should not be lifting anything greater than 50 pounds. And then we also want to make sure that people aren't getting hurt, because you don't want a recordable injury because somebody, you know, threw their back out or something on the top rack fell on someone. I've seen it. It's not fun. We just want to keep people safe. You know, one of my favorite quotes when it comes to safety is, we want everybody to go home with all their fingers and toes. And then, you know, just a group setting. When I do training, I like to do it on the floor. You know, call it the Gemba, going to the place of work. You know, I hate PowerPoints. I know this is an online presentation, but when I'm working with people, I like to be on the floor doing it. You know, I think people learn by doing. So again, when it comes to training, I'm just thinking about one of my clients, because they did have a training manual and it was pretty dusty. Literally, there was dust on it and it hadn't been opened in years. And so what I did was a custom tailored lean awareness training, had examples from them. And the whole goal was to take less steps, right? So when I talk about lean and cutting out the non-value steps, non-value activities, lean is also supposed to make your life easier. So how can we make your life easier in a warehouse? We can take less steps. And I know the training was a success, because the next time I was on site and visiting up with them, they were talking about, hey, Brandon, I got my pedometer on. I'm taking less steps, man. Good job. We got the warehouse organized. We got the map. We know where things are at. So thank you. And that gave me a lot of gratification, because I knew that I communicated it well and it's making their life easier. So that was a win. So finally, we got process improvement. There's a lot of different terms out there. You know, there's Lean Six Sigma, there's Six Sigma, there's Kata, there's Plan, Do, Check, Act, Continuous Excellence. I mean, there's all these different things. Lean is my favorite. And again, I am a Six Sigma black belt, so I can use that. But at the end of the day, process improvement is about increasing or improving quality, improving efficiency, increasing your speed, and lowering your costs so that you can save money. So it might be, you know, it takes you 30 or 40 minutes to get an order out the door. How can we get it to 25? It might be that in your warehouse, you've had a few dings where, you know, your fill rate or order percentage is at 94%. Might be at 80, might be at 70. I'm not here to judge, but how can we make that number better? How can we take simple metrics and improve performance, which will ultimately lead to lowering costs and then finally saving you money? Because again, if you're trying to burn money, you know, there's no reason to call me. But if you're trying to save some money, you know, some nickels, dimes, quarters here and there, you know, call me and it will have lasting effects for your business. So here's an example of a process improvement project that I did. Simply unloading a box truck. So we've all been there before. The driver checks in. They don't know what dock door to pull up. I mean, we've all been there, right? Everybody has a pretty good grasp on how long it takes to get a truck out of the door, because a driver has an appointment maybe. You know, you don't want to get charged with demurrage or anything like that, detention. But unloading is a little bit different, right? Because, you know, they might, you don't know when they're going to show up. You got to check the inventory, make sure it's exactly what you want. But what we did was apply NASCAR principles from changing a tire. It's called single minute exchange of die or quick changeover. We applied those same principles to unloading trucks. And from there, you got phenomenal results that were tangible in saving money and time by having a plan, mapping out the activities, and how can we unload the trucks faster, who's doing what, you know, to get that driver on their way, especially if you're going to reload them with something else. But either way, it's a win-win. And these principles of quick changeovers can be applied to a lot of activities, especially in a warehouse. Same, you could do it with a rail car as well. Okay, so I've talked a lot. There's a few more things. Yeah, I'm going to assign you homework. One, you can read The Goal. The Goal is a classic business novel I read in undergrad, and I've actually bought it for a few of my clients. Second, you can take the same classes that I've taken at Georgia Tech. Obviously, I don't think anybody's going to go get an undergrad degree or anything like that. But I do recommend, sending some of your employees to get the training at Georgia Tech. I obviously do training. I can come to you, but if it fits into your budget, by all means, send people in to get training. Finally, go to my website. You can schedule time with me. I don't charge for conversations. I can help you. I mean, my goal is to genuinely help small businesses and e-commerce companies grow. Schedule some time with me. We can have a conversation, talk about your problems. And if I can help you, we can talk about next steps. But if I can't, I completely understand. So again, it's Brandon Atchey with Warehouse Engineers. And today we talked about the foundation of warehouse engineering. My site is thewarehouseengineers.com. There you can find my email address, schedule time, my phone number. Again, thank you for taking your time out today to learn more about warehouse engineering and how it can help you lower costs.